SEAL detachments in Saudi Arabia. We're doing all these different, lily pad from here to here to here, follow the
Mhm.
box truck, um, the Kobar tower bombings. There's all kinds of things that were happening on these deployments
Yeah.
that I had nothing.
Welcome to the Calm in the Chaos podcast, where we discuss untold heroic experiences and dive into the mindset of the Navy's elite rescue swimmers. Hosted by former U.S. Navy Aviation Rescue Swimmer, Mount Everest solo summiteer, and best-selling author Brian Dickinson.
Hey everyone, it's Brian Dickinson. If you're enjoying these stories, please take a second to like, subscribe, and share the podcast. It helps more people find these conversations, and it keeps the mission alive. And if you want early access to new episodes and to support what we're building, consider becoming a Spotify paid subscriber. Your support means everything. Now let's jump in so others may live. Mike Ousley, so good to have you on. Just a big part of the book, Calm in the Chaos, huge part of the community, 32 years active service, got out 4 years ago, which seems like yesterday, 2021, retired Master Chief at AWR side of it, which we'll talk about because that's all changed since I've been in. But just thank you for being here on the podcast.
I appreciate that. Thank you very, very much. Glad to be here.
Yeah. Yeah, everyone knows you. You're this one, there's a few of you out there and you're definitely one. So when I was writing the book and doing all the research, it took like 3 years to do all that and just interviewing all the different folks. You were able to just I don't know, just create kind of an overarching, set of wisdom that I was able to just, put throughout the book. So I certainly appreciate that. It really helps since, I got out in 99 and, there's a big gap in my knowledge and experience because I went on to some other little things and you're there and you're just doing the amazing work that you're doing. So I appreciate it.
Thank you. It was fun to read about Berkey and Hub and working with Justin and Darren. It's like this is like my family, telling stories.
It's a
Because I'm
reunion
eating
in
the
a book.
popcorn watching. It's like, okay, here we go.
Yeah, that's awesome. So when did you go in?
I joined pretty much right out of high school. Had a job for a little bit, but in September of '89.
Nice.
So it was tried living on my own for a little bit, and then said, you know what, I'm gonna go join the Navy.
Nice. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in southern Arkansas, a little town called Crossett. Not too many people know about that one, but
I don't.
great, great town. Um, Moved out of there the middle of my senior year of high school to upstate New York, Plattsburgh, New York, Air Force town.
Hmm.
Um, Graduated there, and it was because the transition had already been made. The cut from okay, hometown, leave, all right, checking the block, go get a job, live on your own, checking the block. Yeah, I needed more, so
Mhm.
ended up. I was originally going to go in to be a Marine,
Yeah.
but the delayed entry program was a little over a year long. Um, Army guy wasn't around. Air Force guy couldn't do really guarantee anything other than like gate guard in Germany. And I'm like, well, let me think about that.
Yeah. Sounds fun.
Um, and as I'm walking out, and granted, this is the late '80s. I walk out, and the Navy recruiter who had been out at lunch was back, and smoking a cigarette, watching soap operas on TV. I'm like, so what's the Navy got? And it's like, what do you do? I was like, I'm a lifeguard. Navy needs lifeguards. Like, you got
Hmm.
to be kidding me. This is after Top Gun, all the recruiting effort and all the Hollywood.
Hmm.
Um, but it's like, what do you want to do? It's like, lifeguard. Navy needs lifeguards. Well, sign me up. When can you leave? This is a Tuesday. I was at boot camp on Friday.
Oh, wow.
So it was exactly what I wanted. But that guy just showed me the videos of everybody jumping out of the helicopter and Goose and Mav and all that stuff and said, "Yeah, you could go do this. You'll be a
Hmm.
flying paramedic." I'm like, awesome. sign me up.
Yeah.
And here we go. Never really looked back.
Yeah. So where'd you go to boot camp?
I went to Great Lakes,
Oh, what month?
September. Yeah.
Okay.
So
So
my first couple hours there were, I was the guy laughing at everybody yelling at me. And
how'd that go over?
I found myself on Snow Watch, which was standing at parade rest looking straight up at the sky. And when the company commander or whoever was yelling at us at that specific time came out to, give me a status update, dum dum, and it's still not snowing. Come to attention first, and
Hmm.
then it's still not snowing.
Nice. That's
So
those
yeah,
are good skills to have. So that
I
set
was
the foundation.
I've always been that guy. I've always been that, I'm either raising my hands like, okay, I'm the one with the question, or it's yeah, I'm gonna be the one to get caught.
Yeah. That's interesting because the older I get and my wife being a counselor and everything, just in writing the book and just all the therapy, everything you learn, the wisdom as you grow older, comes down to our personalities, how those are set. And some people are just that person. Some people are the quiet, you know, silent heroes or whatever else. But, we need all types. And, you are who you are, and you just have to own that.
Definitely,
That's
definitely.
cool. So from there, you went, did they have Dive Motivator back then? Were you doing any additional workouts?
No, there was nothing remote, specific to rescue swimmer school. Then that all got separated out in boot camp. So that's where if you wanted these specific jobs, which was diver, rescue swimmer, or SEAL,
Hmm.
uh, that's where they would separate people out at the second class swim test.
Okay.
So they put us in the pool, and what I didn't mention earlier is I was uh, I was maybe 110 pounds soaking wet
Yeah.
all
Same.
through high school. So
I had to get a waiver to get in. I was so
try
small.
out for the football team, and it's like get off the field. Older brother
Hmm.
was in the band, so I ended up playing the trumpet, which was bigger than me. Um, but I was a competitive swimmer, so I got pretty good, very very comfortable in the water. So that's where the lifeguard job came in, and so put me in the pool, with 98 other recruits, and it's like I'm down and back before the first couple people just start swimming, and they're like, "It's not a race." Well,
You just can't win.
I'm not racing, but clearly I'm winning. But it's one of those where myself and one other person who also was going to be a rescue swimmer, and I think there was one guy who was going to be a SEAL. They separated us right out of the gate and said, "Okay, yeah, you're done."
That's good.
But that was the dive motivator. It's like,
Yeah.
are you going to hit the water and die? No. All right, clear. Check in the box. Go continue training.
Yeah. That's interesting. So then from there, you went to Pensacola?
I did. Yeah. That was check in on the Friday, and you've got build up starting on Monday morning, and it was pretty much 2 inch vari nozzle right to the face. Starting right out of the gate. So our build up for our class, because in I probably got there right at the beginning of like January of 90. So it was one, or December of 89, but it was one where we still had the Coast Guard swimmers
Mhm.
integrated with us. So we had four coasties in our class.
In air crew
And
or SAR school?
what's that?
Was it an air crew or SAR school?
Um, oh, SAR school. It's
Okay.
SAR school. Yeah, oh, yeah, of course. Here's my horrible memory from 3 decades ago. Yes, definitely went through air crew
So it's
first.
so easy and fun that we just bump right over it. For some, like that's make or break your whole career. But it
Yeah,
was like a blast, right?
that those are the formalities. The spin and puke, and you get in the flip the levers and do all this stuff. So the the aviation adaptability component.
Mhm.
So knock that out of the way, and then roll right into swimmer school. And
Yep.
that was a check-in Friday, start class Monday,
Hmm.
where there had been one guy there for like 14 weeks
Wow.
trying to, because when he checked in, he didn't even know how to swim.
That's, yeah. That's interesting that they would even keep someone. And, sometimes now you're teaching the right way and you can become, top of the class.
I think that gets back to the mentality of it as well, is they weren't going to kick him out. He had to quit.
Mm,
And it was almost like a test of, um, well, let him continue to try until, this becomes buffoonery or something. But, yeah, no kidding. He definitely classed up while I was there and was actually one of the strongest people in the water based
mm.
on, 14 weeks of dedicated diet, workout, and pool time.
Yeah. Yeah. It's almost an unfair advantage at that point. And then
Exactly.
maybe you could learn something from that. Like, maybe every person should have maybe not 14 weeks, but, a month or something where you're just dedicated to the workup. So this was right, pretty fresh with Marecki, the death. How did that affect? Because I went through in '93 and it was still like top of mind. Just everything kind of fell back to that as an example.
They, I'll never forget his name, Senior Chief Mitchell. Um, Everybody that knows him, when I do this, I'm describing his shoulders.
I thought
And
it had like a big head.
yeah, he's just a monster of a human being. Uh, phenomenal, phenomenal instructor. Kept everything in line. My class, we were actually part of like the Good Morning America class. So the Good Morning America came and filmed us while we were running the chip trail and,
Oh,
kind
nice.
of, throw us in the pool and everything. But
Is that footage still out there?
it should still be out there
Yeah,
somewhere.
I'm gonna look that up.
Um, but it
Yeah.
was
Famous.
early 1990. Uh, um, Good Morning America.
Okay, gonna look it up.
But Senior Chief Mitchell was the kind of guy that would come up to the surface and go down, start blowing these tiny bubbles, and he would, give me three swimmers, and people would go down there and wrestle around with him. He would completely ruin their day, send them to the top, and he's still down there on that one breath. And then he
Hmm.
would kind of slowly come up and, go right back down and ruin another three people. But
Hmm.
at that time, after Marecki, it wasn't really fresh in our heads. This wasn't news to us. This was the staff. That was more important for the staff to understand. And this is only my reflection after, being away from it for so many years.
Yeah,
But
sure.
they were they were critical on the getting people to acknowledge their own ability without, this kind of this peer effort.
Hmm.
If you notice that, like your final battle problem or your final Maltese, there wasn't a bunch of people standing around the side of the pool rooting you on. This is something that it was you against the next indicated survivor directly
Hmm.
in front of you. Go get it done. So they really separated themselves away and really made it to where, um, it was your own mental ability to get in there and make or break the situation.
Yeah.
It's like I'm going to get in here and do what I got to do. They would give the signals while you're not looking to the survivor of how to
Yeah.
react. And if you were strong, ready, prepared, no matter what they did, you were able to counter it, no problem.
Yeah.
So otherwise, it would trip people up and force them to kind of get back into that mental reserve of, okay, what are my fundamentals? What do I have to do to get back into this?
Yeah.
So back to your question of after Marek, there was a lot of one-on-one, but it really stressed you to the point of, um, whether you knew it or not, to, okay, you're going to have to act. You're going to have to be the one to make this happen. There's nobody coming to help you. You're
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, so that's real world. So that's good. That's a positive change for sure. That's how it was when I went through as well. Like
Exactly.
everyone
That
was in the locker room waiting, so there wasn't that because in the real world, you're not going to have people along the side like shouting at you, everything else. You have the chaos that you're actually dealing with. So make it as realistic as possible.
100%. Yeah. And if even if it was just somebody with the garden hose spraying it on your mask to kind of disrupt you to
Hmm.
simulate the waves, I mean, it was enough to trip you up if you're, if I'm thinking about something else or if I'm not 100% right here, right now, it
Hmm.
is going to um, directly affect my ability to make your day better.
Yep. Nice. Okay. So how was your experience? Did you did you make through? Do you like for life saving everything else? Do you ever have any challenges?
At Rescue Swimmer School, no, and it was great because, like I mentioned, the four coasties that we
Hmm.
had in our class. Um, pardon me, it was almost a little competitive. It was really competitive, but it was
Hmm.
one where, some certain, instructors that I had, would really make it a point. It's like, we're not going to let the Coast Guard do better than the Navy today. It's like, hell no, 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 so we're going to get after it. But
Yeah.
they had been in Rescue Swimmer School. They'd completed theirs, which was something like aircrew like 13 weeks, and then
Yeah.
their final was showing up to the Navy to kind of learn our equipment and you know our facilities were set up better for that.
Yeah.
Um, so there was this one coastie swimmer and myself who were routinely battling it out. It was like him, me. I'm tapping his fins as he's swimming. He's tapping my fins as I'm swimming. But it pays to be a winner.
Hmm.
And there was enough competitions where I ended up being honor man, beating out all the coasties. So it was a good class. We started with, I don't know the exact number. We started with a pretty healthy class, and we ended up with uh, I would say just a little bit less than half.
Hmm. Yep. That's pretty common and probably even less than that that didn't get rolled back. So like the originals.
Exactly. But it was great. I didn't get rolled back. I just thought it was a lot of I thought it was a lot of fun. I years later I would tell people it's like when I went through, I was just Forrest Gump. It's like, Owsley, why did you swim so fast? Because you told me to. It was just naive military. This is your job. Go be great at your job. This is how you're good. How do I get good at my job? Make sure my uniforms are good. I learned some tips and tricks from over the weeks with the guys on attention to detail.
Hmm.
Figured out what all that meant, and then how to get the instructors off your back, and then clean your room well enough to where Senior Chief Mitchell comes in like you know the
Hmm.
big character wants to roll around on the floor in his khakis. That's the kind of the stuff that you want to do and present. So it was good.
Yeah. Oh, good. Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of people, there's fear that gets them through. There's such a high attrition rate. There's um, there's no option B. Is there anything for you that just got you through, or were you just so meticulous and just the attention to detail, and or was there's something driving you beyond, just the daily routine?
No, I think it was the instructors did a really good job of recognizing the fact that I'm, just this, young, dumb Southern animal who just happens to be kind of strong and very, very comfortable in the water.
Hmm.
So it was, because I would get the hits of, your hand should be here and not separated, and
Hmm.
kind of do the maneuver, and I'm thinking to myself, but I got it done. And they're like, listen, attention to detail, attention to detail. So it
Hmm.
was a double-edged sword in the fact that yes, I knew I could do it. I'm completely capable of doing this. Keep throw another survivor on me, and I'll try to take care of that too. But it was I want to prove the instructors that I could do it. I wanted to be able to prove that you know, yes, I'm easily able to knock this out. And if I round a corner based on the fact of my capabilities, then I want to be able to prove that as well.
Mhm.
And I got yelled at a lot, but it was great. It was, I mean, it was one of the best experiences ever.
Yeah, and just created the foundation of, what you're able to do so far beyond, a 4 week school. So that's pretty amazing. So you go there, you graduate from there. Did you do jumps? Did you jump out of the same helo behind me?
No, actually, I've jumped out of pretty much all of them. I've jumped out of a Huey for my initial jumps, that
Oh yeah,
introductory, like, okay, here you go. So,
nice. How was that?
yeah, that was amazing. You could lift your mask up and be right underneath and have this conversation
That's like
under
no
the
rotor
rotor
wash.
arc.
That's crazy.
Hardly any rotor wash at all. And then when I go out of the H3, there's a little bit more of rotor wash, but definitely not the 60.
Hmm.
Definitely not the 60.
Yeah, the thing is nuts.
And definitely not a 53. That's a whoa.
Definitely not a
Woo.
50. Have you
I've gone
jumped
off
through a
the ramp of
53?
that. I got to jump out of a 53,
Oh
and
my gosh, yeah.
that was a
That's
good
nuts.
time.
I'm surprised they even allow that. Are they what else is there? 46.
46. I repelled out of the back of a 46. That got to do the Sky Genie,
Uh-huh.
coming out of that. But that was the one of the Hyra classes that I did later on.
Okay. Nice. Okay. Well, from there you go to Millington, went through AW school, then out to, were you in San Diego or Jax?
San Diego. Yeah, I went to HS10. Well, funny story back at A school. So here I am, the rescue swimmer, and according to my recruiter, I'm going to be this flying paramedic.
Right.
So here I go to AWA school, and my choices in the 80s were AX, AQ, all these rates that had been merged into AW.
Hmm.
But that was administratively, that was all happening while I was in the pipeline.
Oh.
So now it's AW. This instructor comes in, starts talking about, lasers looking underwater, finding submarines. And I'm that guy. I'm raising my hands like, all right, so, when we learning about becoming a paramedic, and he's like, what's your name? Ousley? All right, dumbass. And it's like I instantly went into that category of not too bright, but it was the um understanding of what the helicopter role was in the fleet,
Hmm.
and understand you got to, okay, we got to go learn this primary job, then we're gonna add all this stuff on later. So none of that was clear to me, and
Yeah.
here I was, that guy. So it
That's,
was it was
you're
a pretty
asking
good
the
time.
questions though. Like
Oh
it's,
yeah, I was definitely the one asking the questions. Other people were like, dude, I was told the same thing, and it's here we go.
Mhm. Okay. So your advanced first aid is all you got at this point. So
Oh yeah.
keep them alive until someone that has a clue will.
Exactly. Just nobody dies in an ambulance. Pump and blow and turn over.
Yep.
That was
So
pretty much it.
at
Stop the big bleeds.
HS10, where was the FRS was at 60s at that point? Did you go right
It
above
was
60s?
the fleet was actually making the transition from the H3 to the 60, and I want to say HS2 was the original squadron that made that transition, and then I went through the transition with HS4, so I was a Black Knight with them. Um, but part of the contract negotiations of the transition, so there was a obloserve that came with, okay, if you transition from the H3 to the 60, you got to do a couple more years, filled up the fleet. So here I am twiddling my thumbs, the new guy at HS10, and I didn't have follow-on fleet orders. So
Mm,
I stayed at HS10 after I graduated to do FCFs, IB flights, things like that, something where I
mhm.
could get, you know, just, I mean, I was the flight, you know, none of the instructors wanted to go. They're like, just send the new guy, new
Yeah,
guy,
yeah, yeah.
new guy,
You're
new guy.
we got a
So
breather. We got a live one here.
exactly, he's got a heartbeat and he doesn't know how to say no. So it's, and he doesn't know any better. So I ended up, before I went to the fleet in 92, So I completed the FRS, A school, went to HS10, completed all that. I
Hmm.
probably stuck around for another 11 months before I
Wow.
went to the fleet. But I ended up going to HS4 on the Kitty Hawk. So it was a good time. It was a good time for me to leave HS10 too. I was the legal officer's pet project.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, at the time, it's like you're trained for 2 years. You want to get out there and utilize all this new knowledge and experience, lack of, minimal experience, but, get out there and layer it on. And then you're kind of hit the tail hook and nope, you're not going anywhere. So probably at the time it was like frustrating, but in the end, it's all a blur and you probably, gained a lot more knowledge and experience than, anyone fresh coming through the FRS.
Oh yeah. I mean, when I checked into HS4, I had something like, 500, 600 hours.
Wow.
So I handed my qualification book and I was like, all right, we're just going to sign off my first crewman stuff. And they looked at it and walked right to the side and tossed it right into the ocean. They're like, yeah, no, you're starting all over. You're in the fleet now. And I'm like,
Oh,
come on.
brother.
So it was good. You know,
Yeah. But it's not like it was difficult at that point. They may have been on you or whatever, but you had the experience. So that's
yeah,
pretty
the
wild.
camaraderie and then just basically the speed of the fleet. And
Hmm.
it is unrelenting. I call it the 3 knot juggernaut. It doesn't care what you're doing. It's gonna go 3 knots forever.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. So you made a few deployments. What did you go to 10 as an instructor then?
So I got about 3 years into my tour at 4, and my original contract was up. So I actually got out of the Navy
Oh,
for a little
okay.
while, about a year, and then came back in and went right back to 4, right back to H60s, and started sea counter all over again. So
Wow. Well, let's pause there. So you got out because it ended. Was there a reason that was driving you to get out?
at that point, it was advancement. Advancement was horrible for third classes,
Hmm.
because we got the accelerated advancement to third class coming out of rescue swimmer school. But to make second class, I mean, pretty much somebody had to, you know,
Get out
die or get out of the
some
way
way. Yeah.
to make any room for an advancement. So
Hmm.
it was bad. And at that time, the new MIGPON was really stressing college and really starting to, personal development, education, critical thinking, all these different metrics. So I was going to get out and go to college.
Okay.
I did not do that. It's
No.
like I found myself working at a workman's comp uh, insurance company at a window overlooking the flight pattern coming out of Miramar in San Diego, and like
That's
during a
torture.
lunch break, I was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna go." I got a reenlistment bonus and went right back in. Best move
Nice.
I ever made.
Yeah. Okay. So then you went to 4.
Went back to 4. Did 2 deployments before. Did another couple with them after. Transition from the Kitty Hawk to the Carl Vinson. Did a couple deployments there, and then I went to 10 to be an instructor.
Okay. During those deployments, did you have any interesting experiences? Like SAR or anything beyond that?
Well, the like the first deployment, we went and parked ourselves right off the coast of Somalia. So we were right there with Restore Hope.
Hmm.
Gothic Serpent happened about a month and a half after we left. Then we found ourselves in the Arabian Gulf. Um, Lots of medevacs, lots of people
Hmm.
back and forth, a lot of heat casualties. So we're dealing with a lot of things. We're moving a lot of people. We had one instance where um, one of the safety braces of the jet blast deflector uh, gave way and came down and crushed a couple legs of some people that were working underneath it, and
Wow.
uh, actually watching the triage happen on the flight deck, watch it get to the aircraft, and then watch it uh, go fruition. Traction in the Stokes litter. All right, the Stokes litter doesn't really fit in the back of the 60 in certain
Mhm.
configurations. So,
Yeah, not with the sonar.
um, but being right there, helping the in-flight doc, kind of learning where the the critical machines are going. All right, we're monitoring oxygen, we're monitoring heart rate, we're monitoring these components, and the doc looks right at you, the swimmer, and says, "All right, you're looking at that leg. If that leg starts to, if that bandage turns red at any point, I want you on it like it owes you money. So, you know." Apply the pressure and let's go. And this is all when it's this dark out,
Yeah.
and we're trying to communicate with each other. So
Yeah.
it was amazing.
Yeah. For those that are listening that don't know, it's easy to think about the quietness of your room right now. When you're in a helicopter, like the loudest helicopter you can imagine, with screaming engines above you, the rotors spinning, the vibrations, just trying to watch someone's pulse, their vitals. It's critical that you get it right. And they really hammer this into us in our advanced first aid and training. But then the reality when you actually get to the fleet and you're put in these situations, I mean, it's a lot. The last thing you want to do is be the cause of, someone passing away, because of a misstep or whatever else. But it is a chaotic environment. And, doesn't matter how many times you've done it, there's always so many variables that just get in the way. So that's a, it's great experience, but in the moment, that's some scary stuff.
It's demanding to the point where your attention is so focused that it really takes time after the flight to decompress. It really takes time to did that just happen? Yeah. Okay. It's like
Yeah.
do the calm check, and it's like, how are we doing? We're doing all right. Okay, I can drive home now. Or we'll go to mid rats and grab some chow, but I want to talk about it.
Yeah. And you're the, anyone else you're hanging out with at that point, like on a carrier or whatever ship, didn't just go through that. You might have a first crewman or someone with you, but they just went down to the gym and worked out, or they, were
Mm.
writing a, I don't know, we didn't have email back in the early
We
days.
didn't have email to start
You know,
with.
maybe wrote a letter, write a book, whatever else, and you're sitting there just normalized with them, like you're compartmentalized. Like even in that moment, you're doing the same job, but they didn't just have that same experience. So it's an interesting, and again, just as we get older, we reflect on all this stuff, and then writing the book and everything. It was just like, yeah, there's a lot of stuff we compartmentalize, and we're trained to do that to be effective and efficient in the moment. But yeah, that stuff, that box does open up, and it's different for every person, but it's good that you're able to process it.
Well, and I mean, it almost a perfect segue. There are deployments that I did at that time, where our operations were so intense, where what we were doing was so on point, tip of the spear, that I don't remember 3 deployments. And when I say, yes, I remember the fact that I was in the Navy and I was on deployment, but there
Mhm.
are details where people have sent me pictures and said, "Do you remember this?" And I'm like, "No."
Yeah.
Uh, SEAL detachments in Saudi Arabia. We're doing all these different, lily pad from here to here to here, follow the
Mhm.
box truck. Um, the Kobar tower bombings. There's all kinds of things that were happening on these deployments
Yeah.
that I had nothing. So I actually, further talk about compartmentalizing. I was uh, eat, sleep, fly survival mode for so long that that was the priority. That was sole function.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I get it. And you put five different crewmen in those same scenarios, you're going to have five different experiences and memories or lack of memories That's why it's so important to journal and to, have a good therapist and just to be able a lot of times talk therapy, just getting this stuff out there because it's in there and it'll take a hold of you, and a lot of veterans will get this that things will trigger that you never even consider, and it's like there's an like a box that is so many boxes, it's like a storage room of things, and then you open one and it opens another, and then it's like, oh crap, I'm out of control, or why am I feeling this way or reacting this way? So it's, yeah, I don't know, there's not a perfect formula for it. Like where are you with that? Do you still not have those memories, or is there still work to be done?
To this day, I've gone through a pretty extensive treatment protocol through veteran services have helped out. I didn't want to name names. Um,
Do whatever you want.
okay,
This is your podcast.
boot campaign saved my life. So that it's one where um, I went in for uh, the sole purpose of, okay, why am I not remembering these deployments? Get past that, and they're like, all right, let's take a look at Mike, and this is this is what's been going on. It's like, well, let's acknowledge the fact that you're living in, pain on a daily level. So, we take care of that, and then we'll satisfy this other stuff as it progresses. So, did I get the answers? No, but did I get a solution, or meaning a methodology to satisfy my curiosity? Yes.
Mhm.
So they pretty much help, and that's where I said I was living in fight or flight for so
Yeah,
long that that it manifests itself.
yeah. And I talk. Thank you for sharing that and the vulnerability. With the pod and with the book and everything that I do, and just giving talks and everything. It's the one-on-one conversations. When we can be vulnerable, and I just this past week I was traveling across the U.S. and up in Canada giving my talk, and just after the fact, people that had the courage to come up and just had near death experiences haven't been able to talk about it. It's that vulnerability that not only helps us because we're getting it out, but there's so many that are struggling out there. So I certainly encourage anyone who's listening to get help, to talk to others. Just know you're definitely not alone. I mean,
Hundred
everyone.
percent. Uh, the rescue swimmers are trained, honed, developed to resist the urge to quit. We're pushed to a point where it is our instinct that has been, brought to the surface that we are going to do whatever it takes.
Hey everyone, this podcast doesn't pay for itself, which is why I launched Kick Ass, Keep Calm in the Chaos merch line. It's not just about a slogan. It's a mindset, a mission, a way of life. Plus, it's an attention getter as random people see and ask about your dope gear. It provides an opportunity to share your unique story with others to help spread some calm across humanity. Every shirt, hat, or sticker you buy goes straight into keeping this podcast alive. The incredible guests and stories and the impact of their experiences. Tap the link or visit shop.calminthechaospodcast.com to gear up today. Thank you so much for helping support the mission so others may live.
The yang to that, if that's the yin, the yang to that would be shame and guilt.
Mm-hmm.
In the if there was ever a nick in the armor or something, something that kind of prevented me from doing that, or if I wasn't able to make 15 pull-ups and I only got 14, that really starts to eat away at a persona. So it's a real metric, and there's boot campaign, home base, all these different entities that are designed to take, that special operations kind of mindset and break it down to, all right, what's really going on?
Yeah. Yeah, it's so important. We only have one life. And yeah, even though all that stuff was amazing in our 20s and 30s, it's like you're operating hard, hitting that red constantly. And then when you get out, guess what?
Ah.
It's yeah, it's a crazy world. So yeah, definitely encourage people to get help. All right, let's we're getting too emotional here. It's important. Okay, so you get back, you're at 10, and then yeah, just take us through your career.
Um, did 9/11 at HS-10. Uh, was on shore duty. Really got into the dedicated soft support side of training. So HCS 4 and HCS 5 were the reserve commands that Ford deployed, and they were still using flying mechanics. The
Mhm.
maintainers were the air crewmen, and get that entire expeditionary role. The fleet was trying to feed as much personnel and capabilities to them as humanly possible, and then trying to get the lessons learned back because the squadrons on the boats, we have an organic capability or an organic requirement to go recover our own. So, uh, you've heard from others on the podcast about having to go inland, make searches for downed aviators, or if there's any kind of dedicated soft support. But it's all the same mentality. It's the attention to detail. It's the prep. It's the positions. It's the muscle memory of the flights and the actions and um, all of that. So basically, that was the kickoff for 20 plus years of modern helicopter combat.
Yeah.
So as I progressed through, past HS-10, went to HS-2. So I was in HS-2 with
Nice.
Corey, and phenomenal human being, by the way, and everything he's doing since.
Hmm. Yeah.
Love him and
Love that dude.
Jessica. They're just awesome. Um, Witness the tsunami.
Hmm.
We can tear into that, but everything in my career has been based on that the warfare mentality. It's a metric that requires uh, the perspective of the enemy vote. In rescue swimmer school, it was okay. The survivor is going to dictate this, but your actions are going to uh, overwhelm it and take control. In everything else that we do in that helicopter and all of its missions and functions, that's the warrior mentality is the metric that designed the flight cards and the hour requirements and all the different metrics that were required to develop people further. So if the rescue swimmer is your introductory, if that's your novice level, then what you get at the end of a ACTC level 3 or level 4 or uh, that level 5 out in the fleet,
Hmm.
and as the level 5 is definitely more, for people that don't know, it's a strategic or it's a very, very advanced level of proficiency. I left HS-10,
Hmm.
went to the Seahawk Weapons and Tactics Instructor course, which is that level 5 course,
Hmm.
and then to
Where's
HS.
that?
That's in Fallon, Nevada.
Yep.
That's it's a program that started back in 2000. So the HS community basically had their weapons and training unit, and when Fallon or the Naval Aviation Warfighting Development Center was implemented, it was basically Rotary School Top Gun.
Right.
And that's where you really honed in on a briefing skill, an academic uh, background that would be able to suffice. Not only did you know everything you about the helicopter and its weapons deployment capabilities, but you knew everything about the strike group. So anybody at that level would be able to speak adequately to any member of the staff or higher as to your capabilities as part of the decision making and mission planning process.
Hmm.
So, as strikes were getting more and more complex, we need more and more people to be able to participate because we're just burning the fuses of too many people.
Hmm.
So the
Now
need.
that's is that ally as well and enemy?
It is there is definitely a joint or a coalition component to that, but in that fundamental uh, training cadre, it's primarily it's just U.S.
Hmm. Yeah, I just remember in the 90s when I was doing this, it seemed like we were figuring out the whole CSAR thing, you
It,
know, on the
it,
job. It
it,
was like printed out, like, oh, here's the SAM from like, so.
exactly, exactly. So and back then the comparison between air crewmen, rescue swimmers, and PJs, it wasn't that far apart. Their their training track really brought them up to, and this really hit me hard on one training exercise at not Nellis, but Davis Monthan. You know, we're talking about getting on station and maybe rolling an engine back and having to take care of a survivor, and they're having graduated conversations about cooled seeker heads on missile systems and you know counter measures of how to defeat them. And I'm all,
Mhm.
yeah, we're not there yet,
Nope.
but we're gonna get there soon.
Yeah,
If it's their primacy now, then that needs to be our primacy. So
yeah, for
we
sure.
matched
Yeah,
up
it's
a
come a long
lot.
ways.
We matched up a lot. Complete the or going through the WTI program. The SWITI, their Seahawk Weapons and Tactics Instructor Program. So that's really where they um, hammer home the instructor techniques and basically where are you where are you getting your information, and then how are you presenting your information. So they wanted to standardize a lot of this across the fleet. So um, as the helicopter communities progressed, there was this is a system of air crewmen coming up with what's best for air crewmen.
Hmm.
Almost like a self-licking ice cream cone where somebody needed to sit out and kind of do a comprehensive review of what we're doing to be able to put together some sort of curriculum for us to be able to advance. That's not just us saying, well, you need to do it 10 times in the dark.
Great.
So it was the best move that the community could possibly do at the time. So graduated that, and it's only gotten more challenging, but it's
Hmm.
one where the academics on that were pretty straightforward. That there were we were training for some pretty amazing things. Um, Completed that route, and then we're able to take a lot of those lessons and scenarios from around the world and be able to build a better training pipeline for the air crewmen once we get them to the fleet. That would better prepare them for anything that they had to experience should they have to do anything over water or anything, a coordinated or integrated effort over land, all while receiving the lessons learned from the at this point HCS 84 and 85
Hmm.
overseas doing 10 direct action missions a night.
Yeah.
These guys were, I mean, they were crushing it and being able to solicit that information. Okay, what's critically important, what's good to have, is even to the, what does your aircraft setup look like? What are you getting, because what are you finding out that you really need and what's really important?
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's real world. Yeah, I'll have a few of those guys on in the near future. Some amazing experiences. It's
Um,
so cool just
just
because our job, it's so interesting. It's like it's one extreme to the other. So, it's just so many avenues you can go. Like think about when you first joined in 89 going through in 90 compared to what it is now. It's just the constant evolution and just, lessons learned. And just who knows what the future will look like. It's pretty wild just to see in a short time frame just how it's evolved.
It is, and what I'm confident about these days is we've done a really good job of being able to not really. I mean, I don't want to use the word test, but condition our mindset to. I want to prepare you for mission X.
Mm,
So you're going to have all the different metrics. You're going to have all the different criteria. Where are you going to get gas? Where are you going to get food? How many people? Where are you going to stage them? How are you going to stage them? Did you bring a ball for the dog to keep it distracted? Where's the interpreter sit? What's the order they go out? And then crush all that by saying your tail rotor just came off and dash two just did the perfect auto into the water. Go. And it's an exercise that a lot of us were able to base off a real world event. While I was at two, not only did we have the tsunami with all that, we
mm,
lost 613. Everybody was able to get out of that. Corey told a phenomenal story. Um, but at the same, later on, we had an aircraft. No kidding. Tail rotor had vibrations, climbed, tail rotor departed the aircraft. Uh, 7 people on board. Uh, Perfect auto, right at pinky time, hit the water, and what are we taught in the dunker? How are we exposed to this in the dunker? Where the belly will hit and then it will roll.
mm.
Well, this one hit and flipped tail over nose,
Yeah, without a tail rotor.
and because of the momentum that they had,
Yeah.
and then rolled.
Wow.
It was already inverted tail over nose long ways. So that really threw off everybody in the back of the aircraft. I think the last person to get out was one of the fixed wing passengers who was playing survivor for one of these long range SAR
Hmm.
missions, strike missions, and so they picked him up and to the point where it's like, man, you guys really do this to the extreme in your training, and it's like, get in the helicopter. But that's Hubble's rescue
Hmm. All
in the
right.
book,
Yep.
and that's one where I wasn't on the flight or even in Dash Two, but it was I'm a chief hunter in the water, and it's like I run to the tower and listening to the radio calls. Dash Two says, it's like I'm ditching the gal, and a bunch of people, and it's like ditching the gal. It's like, we got another bird ditching? It's like, no, he's disconnected the 50 cal and he's throwing it in the water to make room for 7 people on top of the 7 people that they already have,
Hmm.
or 5 people that they have in the back of the aircraft. So,
Yeah.
um, you know, throwing guns out, making room, doing what you can with the limited amount of gear that you have. These are the golden questions that you ask somebody who's, it's like you think you've got everything covered. Well, let me throw this hula hoop at you.
Hmm.
And then I'm going to throw a harmonica at you. And it's now I'm going to ask you to do an advanced algebra problem. So um, it was a process and a learning curve where people waiting on the ship, and it's like, don't call the helicopter yet. They're in the process of putting a swimmer down the wire. That's the priority right now.
Yeah.
And they're kind of looking at me like, "What? How do you know?" And then in about 10 seconds, they're going to call you with an update.
Yeah.
It's like, how do you know? And it's like, believe me, this is what we do. And the OPSO, the skipper's standing right behind me, and they're answering questions as required. But I'm not letting the the OS jump on the radio and start, okay, give me an update. How many people do you have on board? What's your favorite color? All these different things. And it's like, they're kind of busy. Leave them alone for a second.
Yeah.
They'll get to you. So it was, luckily everybody got out of that.
Hmm.
Um, Brought everybody back. And one of the first things that the, ordinance comes by, and it's like, where's my guns? And I was like, crewman's like, we threw them out.
Yep.
They wanted,
Mile
they wanted
deep.
to make a big deal out of that, but it's like, listen, life over limb.
Yeah.
We're you know, adios this stuff
Yeah, yeah.
just to make
What's the
room.
value of that gun versus a
Yeah,
human life? It's not even a question.
not a question.
Yeah, yeah, that's a crazy scenario. It's an honor to have that conversation with Jesse. Um, all right, so from there, take us through the rest of your career.
Wow.
A lot of stuff.
Then basically run the West Coast Weapons School, which is really in charge of, setting up the training requirements and the periodicities and all these things. And again, we're modern helicopter combat. So it's been a while, knock on wood, since, rescue swimmers have been needed at that sole rescue swimmer job.
Mhm.
But it's really been paying dividends in uh, everything in theater. So all the helos in country, there's the Navy aircraft where SEALs have been completely, you know, overrun, wounded, and walk right into a Navy aircraft and get them to the treatment. And getting that feedback and then being able to push that to the fleet as this is our critical nature. This is it was very rewarding.
Mhm.
So being able to do weapon school, uh, made senior chief. Um, we lost a couple. We lost another couple aircraft. A couple incidents. And it was a very similar incident to what happened to happened to HS6, where we lost the entire crew. That was basically CFIP or controlled flight into terrain. Um, they went right into the water in bad weather, and then you refocus on what's critically important. And then at the end of that tour, made senior chief, got the opportunity to go overseas, work as a battle watch captain in Bahrain for the P3 community,
Mhm.
which is completely out of whack. But it was one of those where if I go do this for a year, that counts as a full sea tour. So it's overseas unaccompanied.
Mhm.
Um, Went into that job thinking, okay, what's a helicopter guy, bringing to the fight over here? But it turns out they needed me. They didn't know
Mhm.
it yet, but on more than one occasion, the Commodore would say, you know, people don't talk to me the way you talk to me.
Is that-
And I was like, well, some people aren't telling you the truth.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm not going to tell you your baby's beautiful. I'm going to, never mind the mushroom cloud behind my head. Everything's great. Focus
Mhm.
on me, but I'm going to tell you the truth. So it was a phenomenal tour. Um, Come back, going back through HSC 3. So the transition from the 60 Foxtrot Hotel to the Sierra is complete now. So I'm in, after coming out of that weapons school, I'm the AWR from the HS community, kind of living in the AWS world. So it just turned out so I'm at 3 going through the transition. So I'm probably going to pick up another squadron. I'm a senior chief, able, ready to go to sea. So never, never let my SAR lapse. So
Mhm.
never had to go through the refresher class or anything like that.
Mhm.
Uh, right as soon as I got back, it was to the point where my body told me I probably can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
So I had, I'm walking around like, what's going on, fellas? What's happening? It's
Mhm.
like, this is how I turn my head. So
Yeah.
people that know me and see me will know that's pretty funny and true. Um,
Well, true. I don't know about funny.
True. But well, no, they would make jokes. They'd see me facing this
Yeah.
one, and they're like, "Hey,
The
Mike," and
hunchback.
it's like gotcha. But found out I made Master Chief, so it's like, congratulations on your promotion. You're moving to Virginia in 30 days. So I asked for a 30-day extension. So went home, told the wife, and said we're moving to Virginia Beach, where I'm going to take on the weapons school on the East Coast. So the HS and HSL communities, you've got HSM down in Jackson, you got the Sierra community in Norfolk. So the weapons schools in Norfolk, Virginia, and came moved out here, um, which was probably year 25 to 28, and then completed that phenomenal tour. Basically, got everything I wanted out of that tour. Gave a lot back to the community with all the lessons learned,
Mhm.
and then finished up where the Naval Aviation Warfare Development Center, NAUTIC, is in Fallon. The Undersea Warfare Development Center is in San Diego, but they have a detachment in Virginia. So for my Twilight tour, I didn't want to move back to San Diego, like cross country move, like after 3 years. So it's
Mhm.
like I had a discussion with the family. Barbie, it's like, do you want to stick around, stick it out? They're like, okay. So finished up my tour there, which was probably one of the best moves that I could have actually ever made because that taught me how to speak submarine, surface, aviation, integrated, coalition, all of it.
Mhm.
And been exploiting that ever since.
Awesome.
So that punched me out to 31 and a half years. And then at the end of it, the day of which was right in the middle of COVID, by the way.
Mhm.
So my retirement ceremony and all that stuff was nixed. But the day of my ceremony, ended up at Portsmouth getting my neck fused.
Nice.
So I ended up spending another 6 months as a patient doing nothing but occupational therapy and, you know, getting myself well again.
Yeah, how was that? Because when you get out, especially after, 3 decades, more than 3 decades, that's huge. You're reflecting on so much, but you can usually still be active. You're down, like you're getting fused, and that's like forced down. You're put in the sear box to now reflect on your 3 decades. Like that must have been
It
hard. I don't know.
it was definitely, I don't want to say was. It has been a challenge that has been ongoing based on you know the condition of the body versus what you can actually do. So there's days where I uh, will calculate. It's like, all right, I'm gonna go out and mow the yard, but I'm gonna pay for it for a few days.
Mhm.
With lumbar and all the aches and groans.
Yeah.
So getting past that, getting into this realm of, okay, it's the body, it can get better. Uh, every program that I've been part of has rallied and forced me to recall everything that you're writing about, everything that you're discussing, everything, each challenge. Okay, what got you here? You know, would 20-year-old Mike have this conversation? No. All right. Why? Well, he's healthy, he's happy, he's running around. Okay, there's no, there's the separation there isn't that far. Basically helping bridge those components where I might not have all the answers of where I was on all those deployments, but I now have a mechanism to be able to deal with it. So
Yeah.
and it's all based off of I'm not quitting. I'm not I'm not going to give up on this. This isn't
Yeah.
anything that you just walk away from. I'm still answering the mail. I'm still doing the job, and the body will come again. Will build back stronger. Right now, I'm probably like a $4.5 million man. I'm not quite 6 million.
Yeah. No,
You
you
know,
look great.
one eye, and I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah. No, that's so important for people to hear that. People always ask me, it's the worst question I get when I give talks is what's next? I'm like, I'm never going to be the person that I was physically, but mentally still strong, more wisdom, adventure is still out there. Like we don't just stop, it just looks different. So the
Right.
boundaries change. And if you're trying to hammer like you were when you were, going through SAR school, you're going to get frustrated because that's just not the reality. And I think so many people really, will just get in a, I don't know, like a downward spiral, when you just keep back in the day, the Al Bundy football, living in the high school dream, whatever.
Living in the glory days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, you can, I don't know, you don't have to live there. You don't want to camp there. It's unhealthy. You can reflect on it, but just be so grateful for the gift that you have of every single day and all those memories and all those lives saved and, impacted because you're doing your duty. And now you're doing it just from a different platform and, from a different, body. And it's all good. It's just we have to reframe our thoughts a lot of times.
We do. And it's healthy. It's good.
Yeah. All right. You want to get into a scenario?
Sure.
All right, let's put you. Okay, after we just said that, we're going to put you back, 30 years ago. Okay, and you are a rescue swimmer for this scenario. Let's see. What's something you don't want to do?
I don't know. You pick. I mean, I'm ready to jump into just about anything.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's great.
Flaming
Okay.
water. Yeah.
Flaming water.
Ugh.
Let's do a downed helicopter in a jungle combat zone. A Navy helicopter is shot down in dense jungle, leaving the crew scattered and some injured. You're being launched from the carrier, flying inbound to a jungle environment. That's all you know.
Going for comms. Who's on top right now? What information do we have? Are there any signals that can be passed? Um, Hopefully the aircraft's configured enough to where I've got lookouts on both sides and opportunity for me to jump in the middle to get completely ready for whatever I've got. I'm anticipating right out of the gate busted noses, busted faces, lower back problems. Probably if people are sitting on seats, worst case, fractured femurs. Um, I'm unable to move and a whole lot of, agony or screaming. So yeah, I want to know how many people we've got and where they're at. And once we get on top, if there's a place to land, that would be optimum. But if I have to be left, I'm taking somebody with me. So it's one where two heads are better than one. Knock out a quick triage, if able. If I mean if they're close enough to where I got eyes on everybody, like a car wreck or something.
Mhm.
Um, then you kind of do the quick survey of what's actually happening. Uh, you know, on the way down, what kind of time are we talking? Are we being overrun, or do I have a couple of TikToks? So it's a because that's a determination of snatch and grab, or do I have time to put things in place? Uh, because I've done both. It's like snap a leg back, smell it. Does it smell like gangrene? And then put it on the litter and send it. Uh, yeah, I mean there's a laundry list of things that are going to um, be going through the head of anybody that's managing that kind of emergency scenario. Is the fuselage even stable enough? Are we leaking gas? Is something on fire? So, it, you know, uh, I've even seen one where HS4 had one where hit wires, and it's like, okay, go turn the battery off because we're still arcing and sparking back here.
Mhm.
And then they undo the cannon plug, and then the cabin falls off the cockpit. So it's there's a lot of going on. There's a lot going on. You
Yeah.
have the conversations with the people that you're able to have conversations with, but you pretty much have to focus your energies on the first person you come to because you are one person.
Mhm.
I am one person. So, I want to make everybody's day better, but I have to do it one person at a time.
Yeah. Crowd
And that's
control.
that's that's something that gets glossed over, but that's the hard part. That's
Mhm.
the scenario. You know,
Yeah. That's awesome.
it's my best friend. you know, female pilot, male co-pilot, and then, two other people in the aircraft. Who do you go to first? First person you come to.
Right. Yeah, that's great. Thanks. Thanks for going back and hopefully that wasn't too traumatic of a scenario, but it's neat to see where your mindset's at. You've been out for a few years, but you've been in forever, and it's just you're right back there, and it's less of how it's done. It's it's how the mind goes to prepare for it, because as you know, once you get there, everything's going to probably look completely different than it was in your
Yes.
mind, but at least you have something to base it on and to pivot left or right on.
Game on. I know I don't want to keep you for too long, but it's one of those things where
Got all
uh,
day.
I've got a couple stories that I'll give you. So Steel Beach Picnic, you know what that is.
Yep.
So that to get the beer day. So I'm on duty. I'm the swimmer, and at the end of the day, where everybody's just completely sun fried, everybody's a little bit, let's call it drunk, and sure enough, I'm in the pity potty all day. Like, it's like I want to be
Mhm.
on Steel Beach, but no, I got duty.
Well, it only happens what a month out at sea.
What I forget the criteria, but you have to be at sea for so long and then you get a beer day.
Yeah.
So I'm in the full blown pity party, and then sure enough, man overboard. So it's like, here we go. So I'm running, stiff arm Heisman, knocking people out of the P-way.
Hmm.
Um, rescue swimmer coming through, on my way to the flight deck. We're in the Gulf, so I got Shorty, ready to rock. I'm not even putting a flight suit back on. I'm just running to the helicopter. And you can see everybody on the flight deck still. I mean, the grill's still going, but people are, congregating on the edge and pointing into the water. It's like, so the flight deck chief comes running to the helicopter as it's starting to spin up. Um, we got two people in the water. And from what it sounds like, they've been fighting all day and they don't want to come back. So I'm like, all right, this is about to happen. And so it's
Hmm.
not one person in the water, it's two people in the water. They're
Hmm.
jumpers
They're combatant.
and they want to have a tussle. So it's okay, we're about to make this happen. So we take off and we fly around and get on top of it, and you can see everybody pointing, and it's two bags of trash in the water.
Jump anyways.
So it's I
Yeah,
mean,
been there.
there's other parts of the story that are even funnier, but it's one of those where it's like we report back, it's like, listen, this is just two bags of trash in the water. But one of the replies on the radio was like, "Well, go ahead and pick them up anyway." And it was like it was just funny. But that was one, the SAR scenarios, and I actually have dozens. It's one where it's it's crazy. And then I sent you a picture of the rotor arc at
Hmm.
night. So in the Southern California desert, when it's blacker than the inside of a basketball, that's what the rotor arc looks like. And we're flying back to San Diego, and it's probably 11:30 at night, overcast, so it's dark. So I look down and I see a set of blinking lights that aren't normally there.
Hmm.
I look down and I look real close, and it's an overturned truck, and there's somebody standing next to it. So I tell the pilot, I'm like, "Hey, we got an overturned vehicle. I'm an EMT. We got to get down there." So it's, I can't just see this and just fly away. I have to go look.
Hmm.
So he's like, "All right." So superhero voice, he comes back around, lands right next to this overturned little Toyota, dust cloud, everything. I jump out, I run over to the truck. I don't see anybody. And I stick my head into the cabin of the truck, and there's a girl in there who is, who just lets out this blood curdling scream. She's just like, oh, like, I'm they're like actively trying to abduct her.
Mm.
So I think about it for a second. I take my MBGs off, I take my helmet off, and I stick my head back in. I'm like, "Hey, my name's Mike. Are you okay?" And she's like, "Wait, what? What?" So I pull her out of the truck, and all she sees is a this blue glowing disc of static electricity. My pilot is now out of the aircraft with his hands on his hips, standing on next to the road, like some kind of superhero wearing NVGs. I'm completely covered with, gear, all while this like 1978 dirty Honda Civic pulls up, all crusty windows, and anybody who's flown around, Ocotillo knows that, there's some great Americans out there. But you see the driver kind of look at the overturned truck, all the military people, the blue disc, and then he, floors it to get out of there as fast as humanly possible. And it's like, fellas, we just became we're an alien. We're an alien abduction story right now. Like aliens
Yep.
are in the desert right now, and it's
We
us.
got a squirter.
We are a UFO. So she's completely frazzled. She has no idea what's happening. She tells me, she's like, I thought the X-Files were coming to get me. So we put her in the helicopter and fly her to a
Nice.
phone and call the cops and say, come pick her up. So it was one of the craziest stories where it's like, did that just happen? Like,
That's
I think
random.
that just happened, but it's, nobody can make that up.
Yeah.
It's one where that person, that Honda driver right now is like, oh no, I saw it.
Yeah.
I
How did you
saw him
log
taking
that?
her out of the vehicle.
How did you log that? Is that like a medevac?
It was. We came back to the report on it, and SAR manager is like, "What is this?
I don't know what to do with this.
Come on!" Like technically, it's a medevac.
Oh man, that's hilarious. Yeah, I mean, you never know. It'd be interesting to talk to her now.
Oh,
What's her memory?
that story is probably been. I don't know. I mean, that would be hilarious to hear.
Hmm. Yeah, maybe she'll hear this pod and reach out. Well, no, thanks so much for I love the side stories. So, Mike, you've had incredible experiences that not many can relate to or really understand, especially with your, 3 decades of service, just all the different things that you've done. With all of that, and even, now since you've been out, what's a bit of wisdom you would leave our listeners with?
Seek the opportunity. Seek the opportunity to um, better yourself, and it's one where you're tougher than you realize. You're a hell of a lot more resilient than you realize, and um, never give up. It sounds kind of hooky and it sounds kind of made up, but it's one where you just can't quit.
Yeah, yeah, quitting's not an option. Great
Quitting's not an
advice.
option.
Great advice from a great man. Well, Mike, thank you so much for spending time with us, sharing your incredible stories, your experiences. I know there's a ton more, and we'll probably have you on again after we talk offline because there's you can share so much and so many people can learn so much. So thank you so much for being on.
I appreciate the time. I appreciate everything that you're doing for the community. I'm definitely not the best spokesman, but we'll get there.
Yeah, no, you're doing great. Cool. And for everyone else, we will see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Calm in the Chaos podcast. Please subscribe to be notified of future episodes. And if you enjoyed what you just heard, please leave a 5-star review on whatever platform you listen to podcasts. Until next time, get out there and make a difference so others may live.